Drop towers are a staple in the amusement industry. There's a good chance your local amusement park has one, and many consider them to be some of the most thrilling rides in the park. A good drop tower will build anticipation, potentially cause your nerves to soar higher than the actual ride, and then lead up into that climactic moment when the whole thing drops and you're back down on the ground. And there are many different companies that have taken on this concept, and so you can find a variety of these things all around the world. And in today's video, I'll be discussing my 10 favorites. For this, I'll only be discussing drop towers that I have ridden. However, luckily, I have ridden what I consider some of the best in the world. At the end of the video, I'll discuss some honorable mentions, so make sure to stay tuned for that if you're a little disappointed that your top 10 didn't make it in, because there might be a reason. So let's waste no time and get into our number 10 spot. Just barely making the cut is Lex Luthor Drop of Doom at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is not the most forceful drop tower, however, the reason it has made the cut, one is because it is freakishly tall, it has open restraints leaving you feeling very exposed, the view is incredible, and then if you're lucky, you'll get a sway ride when you're up at the top and Superman, Escape from Krypton, also shoots up to the top and the whole tower sways, and that is a terrifying moment. So the actual drop might be okay, but the experience as a whole, I think, is pretty cool. At number 9, we have a drop tower that is drastically shorter. However, these drop towers pack a punch. These are LARSON super shots. And for the most part, these thrill rides tend to be found at some of the smaller parks because that's what they can afford. This is a cheaper alternative that packs in a huge thrill. Not only is it a great drop, but it is sudden. You don't know when you're going to reach the top, and then without warning, it does not pause at the top like almost every other drop tower on this list. This thing immediately clicks and you're dropping. So in that regard, it is scary. It is guaranteed to catch you off guard, and that's why I'm a big fan of these things. You never know when the drop is gonna hit. Just above it is Mystery Castle at Phantasialand. And what I love about this is this drop tower is highly themed and is all indoors. If you have not experienced this, the way they've set it up is that there are multiple drop towers positioned around the outer edge of the building, and they'll rise and fall at different times, all part of this show that kind of goes on in the center with lights and effects, and it goes through a random drop sequence. And when I wrote it, I got off saying, it was a little short, wish it were longer, but actually, if you ride in the afternoon, it's a longer experience. Another highly themed indoor drop tower is Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout at Disney's California Adventure. If you're a Marvel fan, you're gonna love this thing. I mean, a lot of people are sad that it replaced Tower of Terror, but here's what I'll give it credit for. I think the drop sequence is actually vastly improved compared to Tower of Terror. Maybe the theme isn't as good in some people's eyes, but it was a great update to an already existing attraction. I love the queue, the pre-show is great with that rocket animatronic, and it's my personal favorite ride in the park. That being said, one spot above it is the original Tower of Terror at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now, I have also ridden Tower of Terror at Disney Sea, however, I am not including it on this list, not because of the theme. I think the theme of that one is great, but I'm actually not including it because that Tower of Terror has a shoulder strap like a seatbelt you'd find in a car, and I think that really takes away from the airtime. This Tower of Terror is the original. It does not have that shoulder strap, and you can get some great airtime. Plus, it's a spooky theme. It's a classic, really builds up anticipation, and it's a story-driven attraction, so it packs in the thrills, and you feel like you just participate in something greater than just a normal drop tower. However, now that we've made it to the number 5 spot, you'll find that a lot of these other drop towers that I personally prefer focus a lot more on the drop. These are the drop towers that I think provide some of the greatest thrills, because these are my personal preferences, and so this is how I rank them. At number 5, we have the INTAMIN GYRO drop towers, specifically the ones at Kings Island and Kings Dominion. This is a sister pair of drop rides, and there are some slight differences. The Kings Island one rotates on the way up. The Kings Dominion one has brakes closer to the ground, so the actual drop height is greater, and the actual drop sequence is exhilarating. The towers are over 300 feet tall, so you can see them from anywhere, and it's a great floating feeling. If you've got a fear of heights, this is not a ride for you. At the number 4 spot is IKAROS at GRÖNA LUND in Sweden. This is another INTAMIN drop tower, and this one rotates you so that you're facing the ground. To my knowledge, this is the only one of its type in the world, not the only drop tower that faces you towards the ground, but in this particular setup, it's the only one that exists. And I think it's kind of funny because this is one of 3 different drop towers in GRÖNA LUND. This one is freaky. It forces you to stare at the ground, so if you're scared of heights, you're probably going to pee yourself on this thing. So it's a really cool attraction, but in my opinion, it's not quite as good as FALCON'S Fury at Busch Gardens, Tampa. And when I first rode this thing, I said, this is hands down my favorite drop tower. And at the time, it was. This is essentially the same type of thing as IKAROS, except this one came first. It's got a different setup. It's a lot taller, and boy, is it exhilarating. exhilarating. It's one of those rides that I like to do every single time I go to the park because of its uniqueness and the fact that that rotation, when you're that high in the air, staring at the ground below, it's unbelievable. But it's only at the number 3 spot, so what do I have at number 2? This one's a bit of an unexpected choice, but it's actually Gravity Bomb at Bigfoot on the Strip in Branson. This is a 200-foot drop tower, and you might be wondering, why is it on this list? I've never heard of it, maybe. The reason is because this is a Stan Checkett's drop tower. The guy founded S&S, but has now moved on to his own company, Soaring Eagle Zipline, and these are some of the most forceful drop towers out there. There's a few others of the same type, including there's one in Pigeon Forge, there's one in Myrtle Beach. I've not yet ridden those two, but I would count those in the same category as this one, absolutely. They deliver the same type of feeling, and one of the things that they all have in common is a very minimalistic restraint. What type of restraint is it? A seat belt. Only a seat belt. You feel so exposed. You can lean over completely and look down at the ground, and you feel like there's barely anything holding you in. It is a wild sensation, but it is not as good as the number 1 pick, which I am very confident is the greatest drop tower ever built. It is Haunted Mine Drop at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. So take Gravity Bomb or those other Stan Checkett's drop towers that I talked about, except put this one underground and surround it with theming. And you're like, whoa, hold on, underground? What are you talking about? They blasted down over 100 feet down into the rock, stuck the tower in there, and then fully encased it, so when you board this thing, you are at the top, and then you drop down below, and then rise back up to ground level. And that's after you go through a fully thematic experience. So you've got this theming all around you to set the mood, and while that's going on, the floor is slowly being pulled out from beneath you, and then you hear fire in the hole, and you drop. And there's a couple reasons why I call this the greatest drop tower of all time. This one also has just a seatbelt, except because it is underground, you can't see the bottom. You are encased in complete darkness. So this drop tower, even though it's just over 100 feet tall, oh man, it feels a lot bigger than that. You feel like you are plummeting down to the center of the earth, and you don't know when you're gonna hit the bottom. But you can feel the temperature change. If it's hot outside, down at the bottom, it's gonna feel cold. If you visit when it's cold outside, it's gonna feel really nice down there. And they even have theming down there to help further the story. And the whole experience is just insane. Every time I go to Glenwood Caverns, I make sure to ride it at least a dozen times. I seriously cannot get enough of this ride. And the crazy thing is, that's not even the scariest ride at Glenwood Caverns. But in my opinion, it's the best. So that is how I rank my top 10 favorite drop towers. A few other rides that just barely didn't make the cut. You probably noticed the world's tallest drop tower, Zumanjaro Drop of Doom, was not on here. There weren't any S&S drop towers, even though there's so many. Personally, I don't think they're quite as thrilling, but I do gotta give a shout out to the Hershey's triple towers because some of those do provide some really nice airtime at the top. I did not get a chance to experience Hurricane Condor when I was at Portaventura, which made me sad because that looked like a really good drop tower. I don't know if it would have made this list. There are also some really nice drop towers at Haida Park, Liseberg. I just barely missed that massive one that just went to Hansa Park. INTAMIN first generation drop towers, those are fun attractions, didn't quite make the cut. So there's plenty of great drop towers around the world, and I want to hear from you guys. What are your favorites? You've now seen what mine are. Let me know down below if you agree with what I've said, if you think there's some I missed, and of course stay tuned for more content here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.